Casual magic is about how we can find beauty in the mundane every day. We look forward to the 1% of days in our lives that are extraordinary, like the wedding, the birthday, the job promotion. But 99% of our lives are just ordinary. And wouldn't it be a shame if we only allowed ourselves to feel joy 1% of the time? Casual magic is a tool to retrain your brain to search for happiness in all the little things of every day that are casually magic. Hi, my name is Jade, and welcome to today's episode of Finding Your Casual Magic. Today, we're talking all things self-love, the relationship we cultivate with ourselves, how we talk to ourselves behind the scenes, and how this can then impact the types of relationships we attract and how we go about making our dreams come true. Do you struggle to say no when someone asks you to an event that you don't want to go to for fear of what they'll think of you? Have you ever found yourself in relationships that don't serve you because you're searching for parts of yourself externally rather than cultivating your inner world? Do you ever wonder why everyone else is living a perfect life and you're stuck with all these problems you can't solve? Well, today's guest is literally the perfect human to help give you an antidote to some of these qualms. Tam Kaur, or as she's known online as Tam Kaur, is a self-love guru, helping millions of young women become the most empowered versions of themselves. Through her motivational advice videos on topics from dating to healing, to her heart-to-hearts on her podcast Self-Obsessed, and the wisdom shared in her new book, Buy Yourself the Damn Flowers, Tam blends actionable advice with meaningful anecdotes to help you become the best version of yourself. And what I find so inspiring about Tam is that she herself is constantly, openly on the journey of learning about herself. She is so personally inspired by everything that she can do to grow, from doing shadow work to trying the 75 Hard Health Challenge. So all the advice that she shares comes from an authentic place of helping others do the same. I love her approach to spirituality, manifestation, and cultivating a belief that the universe wants the best for you. And my guilty pleasure, Tam is also an astrology girly, which to me is a sign that I can trust anyone. And if you hate astrology, don't worry, we're sadly not doing a birth chart deep dive today. If you're listening to this, there's a chance that maybe you are feeling a little low today. Maybe you're not feeling like your most empowered self. And I just want to remind you that that is okay. Confidence is a fluctuating thing, much like a muscle, and there are days we might feel on top of the world and others where we might struggle to even find one nice thing to say about ourselves. So I want to start by applauding you for coming here and actively investing time and energy into your growth journey. And I truly hope that this episode has you coming away with some new actionable insights on how to be the best version of yourself. And you know who's going to tell us more about that? Hi, Tam.
Hi, thank you so much for that fabulous intro. I'm honoured and I'm so happy to just be here. I can't wait to get into this juicy discussion. I can't wait to see all of the topics we're going to get into.
I feel like there's so much alignment between us. I can't wait to dig into it. But before we do, we have a habit at the start of every episode where I love to invite my guest and all of you guys watching to take a second to really ground. And I love to invite you to do a 60 to 90 second meditation. We're just going to focus on our breathing. And if you're at home, if you've never done a meditation before, don't worry, it's not scary. You don't need to have a life epiphany. You're literally just going to focus on your breath for a few minutes. And I just love this vision of all of us around the world, wherever we are, whether you're on your lunch break in Tanzania, or whether you're like on your little morning walk in London, wherever you are, this vision of all of us taking a moment to go inward and ground. So, are you willing to meditate with us, Tam?
Absolutely.
Amazing. Take a second to notice where you are in space. Are you in a room? If so, how big is the room? Are you outside? What can you see? And if you feel comfortable to do so, gently close your eyes. Start to become aware of your breathing Notice where you can feel the breath in your body. Maybe noticing the rise of your chest and belly at the inhale and fall on the exhale. Imagine yourself rooting down into the ground, feeling grounded and aware. And notice if you're carrying tension anywhere in your body. If you can, try to allow that tension to release as you exhale. We're going to do a final 4, 6, 8 breath, where you'll take a deep inhale for 4, hold it for 6, and then exhale for 8. So when you're ready, deep inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold at the top for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And big exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Welcome to the episode. Hi, Tam. I would love to start by asking you, how do you personally define self-love?
There's so much conversation around this on the internet, and I, at the beginning of my journey, was desperately searching for an answer. And that's really what I wanted the beginning of my book to tackle. I think there's so many different definitions, many of which are vague. If I was to sum it up, I would say it's liking yourself through every experience. No matter how big, no matter how small, no matter if it involves you making mistakes or learning about yourself or doing something that you're not the biggest fan of, you still show grace and compassion towards yourself. I would also say self-love is all about doing the best favor you can for your current self, your inner child, your future self. But if I was to go into it more deeply, when I was on my experience and I was desperately searching for this definition, I came up with the 10 components of self-love.
Ooh.
Because I really wanted to be like, okay, what does self-love actually involve? Okay, yes, it's about loving oneself, but how do we go about that? What are the actions? So some of the examples of the components that I list out in the book are giving the 5 love languages back to yourself, practicing self-acceptance. You can't love yourself unless you love every version of yourself that came before you. That is literally the reason as to why you're here today. Another example is inner child work and inner child healing. Like, once again, loving those past versions of yourself. And it's so interesting because I felt like I had made so much progress on my self-love journey because I was like, oh, I like myself now, or I feel confident, but I still held quite a bit of shame around my teenage self. And I thought, she couldn't talk to anybody or she couldn't do this. But it's like, she is just as worthy of love and affection and acceptance. There's nothing wrong with who you used to be. And I think that's where you truly start to feel and live a self-love lifestyle.
I love that. Loving yourself through the experiences that maybe are a little uglier, the ones that we don't want to post on social media, the times when you feel like we're not thriving.
Yes.
To love ourselves in those undesirable moments is the self-love. I'm so glad that you brought up your book. Okay, so I have Tam's wonderful book here, Buy Yourself the Damn Flowers. And this is a wonderful, actionable book, as you described. Like, you really dig into how we can access self-love in so many different ways and so many new habits. And I'd actually love to start by reading an excerpt. Excerpt? How do you say that?
Excerpt?
An excerpt of your book to kind of, I don't know, get to the start of your healing journey.
Let's do it. I love this.
Yeah, because you're so vulnerable. You start the book before you're the wonderful, thriving Tam Kaur that we know today, and I'd love to just hear you expound on it more if you don't mind. So in the first chapter of her book, Tam digs into some of the relationships that she was in at a younger age and how, unfortunately, these were relationships that didn't quite serve her. And as someone who's also been through a very toxic romantic relationship, which shaped me in a lot of ways, this chapter just hit home. And so I'm going to read a little excerpt. Why can't I say that word? So I did what any insecure 17-year-old would do. I chased his validation. Suddenly, only his opinion mattered. I wanted him to see me, to be with me, and most importantly, to be in love with me. So throughout our 4-month relationship, I wore more makeup, dressed in a way I thought he would like, played the easygoing girlfriend, gave him my undivided attention, and pretended to be interested in all his hobbies. I thought it was working and that he had moved on from his ex, until one day my best friend confirmed the worst. My first ever boyfriend had confided in a mutual friend that he preferred his ex to me. My world shattered. Was I not good enough?
Deep stuff there.
Tam, you went there. You said, I'm going to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
I would love if you could tell us more about who you were at that time of your life and how those relationships shaped you.
So that story time is actually from my first ever relationship/dating experience. And given that it ended really badly, at that point in my life with that previous version of myself, any kind of challenge or adverse situation that was thrown my way, I always had this mindset of I'm so unlucky, or why are things never working out for me, and why do people have to treat me this way? And it was a very like why me mindset. And I look back at it now and I'm like, there were so many things actually I could have done to have avoided that situation. That's not to say that I deserved it, but it is to say a lot of the time the mindset that you keep about yourself and the way that you think about yourself or the energy that you put out will affect what you're bringing into your life. And the reason I was in a relationship like that, where I was literally being rejected while I was in the relationship, and yet I kept going after it and I kept chasing it, was because I hadn't worked on myself yet. I hadn't found myself. And most importantly, I hadn't shown myself the love that I was so desperately craving from others. And I spoke about this a bit in the book as well. I have been a hopeless romantic since a weirdly young age. Very young age. Like rom-coms have always been my movie. And
What does hopeless romantic mean to you?
I've just always fantasized and hoped for the day that I would be in a relationship and like go on dates and do all the romantic stuff. And to me, 17 was late. But I look at it now and I'm like, that was young, girl. That was young to be in a relationship. I felt like going through all of secondary school, having not had that experience, I was like, nobody has a crush on me. And
It must be a me problem.
Exactly. So the second that somebody showed me an ounce of attention, I was like, sure, I'll go for it because that's what I wanted. And there wasn't enough like self-esteem or just happiness in my own solitude to take a step back and think, actually, do you align with me? Are you going to meet my standards? Are you going to treat me well? Can I take a look back? And actually, there are multiple red flags here where I can see you do like your ex. So maybe I shouldn't get in this situation. But when you're so fixated on somebody else is going to come along and fill this hole or fix me, your mind won't let you see those red flags.
So true. And it's like, do you really like them? Or do you like your imagination
That's
of
it.
them?
The way that they are going to add to your life or distract you from the pain that you might be experiencing on the inside.
Damn. I always find, because I was in a relationship that didn't really serve me in my first year of university, and it got to the stage where I actually almost stopped filming YouTube videos because he would watch my videos and make comments about them, even though I told him not to watch them. He's like, oh, I care about you. That's why I'm watching them. And he'd be like, oh, it's so cringe what you said there. And just going through this experience of kind of allowing myself to be belittled, because clearly it was validating insecurities that I had and that I was not dealing with in myself. How did that shape you? Like being in those relationships, how did it shape yourself at the time?
That's crazy because another one of my relationships I was in was exactly that. Like, I put out these YouTube videos or posted these things on Instagram that I loved and women online loved and they were resonating with.
The target audience.
Then I was like, oh, I don't want the literal person I'm in a relationship with to see this. What is that about? And I thought, it's fine. Like, he's a guy. My content is catered to women. Maybe that's why. He's just not a social media person, so it's fine. But the fact that I am accepting company or a relationship from a person who cannot even fully understand what brings me so much joy and what like encapsulates my personality is shocking.
Yeah. I love how you touched on this idea of but it must be my fault, you know? Oh, like almost like victim mentality. You discuss it in your book, but I'm broken mindset. Can you describe more about what that is?
Yeah. I think when you've gone through some traumas, some challenges in your life, it's really easy and almost natural for people to start to internalize that and use it to form their identity. Like, I have had a hard life, and then that kind of forms my personality today or who I am now and what I want out of life. Or I was never shown love when I was younger, so now like that's really important for me and I need to find somebody who's going to fix that. And while they are all very understandable things, they can really taint and kind of sabotage the way in which you go out to go get them. And I always say you aren't what happened to you. And if you don't like what's happened to you and if you don't like the way that your life has gone now, why are we using that to kind of form our decisions on what next step we should take? Doesn't make any sense. And then that's when you're in like this endless cycle. And I used to do that all of the time. I was so almost infatuated with everything that had happened to me, and it was consuming me because I felt so unlucky, which then caused me to compare myself to other people. The second I started to detach myself from those things and think, actually, that's something that's happened in the past. My future is something that I can create. That's my choice. That doesn't have to do anything with what I've been through before. That's when things really started to change, because now I was showing up to every situation as a better, more like healed, more secure version of myself that wasn't holding on to the things that broke me.
Wow. And how did that shift happen? How were you able to get out that mindset? You've come out of these relationships that haven't served you, that made you feel like you're unlucky and that it's your fault. What was that journey like to then realizing that, yes, those things happened, but I get to create my future and I can be as lucky as I believe that I am?
It's definitely a process, but my biggest tip with this is you have to be just really conscious of what thoughts are coming into your head, what responses you're having to certain things. I think the reason that we internalize what happens to us and we feel unlucky is because we are letting things happen to us every single day. And we're not fully aware of the power we hold to create our reality and everything that we come into contact with. And that was me. Like, there wasn't much intention at all with each day that I was experiencing. If I had a bad day, I had a bad day. But nowadays, I'm like, I get to create the day I have. Even if something bad happens in my day, I get to change the direction. I could wake up at midday and think, I used to think I've wasted the whole day. There's still a whole day of abundance waiting for me. You know what I mean?
100%.
And it's that consciousness and that intention. And the same goes for healing and creating a new identity and stepping away from versions of yourself that didn't serve you and get what you wanted. It's like, I'm going to start journaling about what happened to me so that I can process it and let it go and let it out of my system, rather than always holding it right here on the inside. And it's just waiting to get out at any given moment when I'm interacting with somebody else or when something triggers me. It's going to therapy for a lot of people. I think that's so important and everybody should try it at least once.
Do you go to therapy?
I have been to therapy before, but I'm right now in the middle of trying to find a new therapist, having just moved here. So that's definitely a process. But therapy can be a hard resource for a lot of people to find. And I believe, in a way, you can also be your own therapist. That's not to say you should never try therapy. It's really good to have somebody who has an outside point of view. But in the meantime, that's why I'm so big on self-development, to just recreate your mindset at any given moment. And it goes back to like, every day when you're trying to step away from who you used to be and those old thoughts are coming back or those old triggers are coming back, you have to reframe those thoughts. And it's going to feel unnatural and you're going to think, I'm being fake or I don't actually believe in this. But it's by bringing those thoughts in constantly that you start to form a habit with the way that you think about things. And that really helped me cultivate a more positive mindset.
Oh, I love it. Okay, this is random, but have you ever used ChatGPT as a therapist? Or have you heard of this? Okay, so on ChatGPT, which is an AI tool, if you guys haven't heard of it, but you can ask it to be a therapist. You can be like, oh, can you imagine that you're my therapist? Here's my struggle. Here's what I'm going through. You can even like journal and maybe even copy and paste, put it in and say, if you were my therapist, what would you tell me? And I think that's a really good free way of getting therapy. Yeah.
What a life hack.
I know. You just reminded me of it. I'm like, you can be your own therapist and you can get AI to be your therapist for free.
Fab.
Yeah. I mean, don't take my advice. It's not a qualified therapist, but potential. It also reminds me of this quote, which is that things that happen to you are not your fault, but they are your responsibility. And I think this is so much of what you're saying, is that you can't control maybe what has happened in your past, maybe even what happens today. There's things that are out of our control, but it's your mindset of how can I make sure that this turns into something that serves me. And something that you talk about in your book and online that I would love to chat more about is this idea of shadow work. What is shadow work, Tam?
Shadow work is leaning into past versions of yourself or parts or past thoughts or limiting beliefs that you have held but have suppressed and kind of pushed away because you were rejected for them or you feel insecure about them or you hold shame around them. And everybody has them. We've all like done something when we were younger. Maybe we got bullied for it. Maybe we weren't shown love or acceptance from our family for it. And it's just pushed to the back, all the way to the back, but it's still there. And shadow work is about revisiting that part of yourself and changing the meaning of it, changing the way that you approach it, and instead choosing to give that part of yourself love and acceptance. And there are so many ways you can do shadow work. One of the most popular being just go online, Google images, shadow work prompts, free questions, have a journaling session. And these are really great prompts that kind of give you the right direction to explore those versions of yourself. Like, what do I wish I could tell my younger self? Where do I feel powerless or weak? Why is that? Those are really good examples. But one way that shadow work has really transformed me goes a little bit back into what I was saying about I felt like I'm so confident now and I feel good about myself, but I don't like the 15-year-old version of myself. And I hold some shame and embarrassment about the way that she approached things or the way that she felt about herself, right? I don't want to associate myself with her, but it's like, she's me. She's still here. She's still inside of me. The decisions she made got me to this place in my life right now that I'm so proud of. So how could I not give thanks to her? And how can I not accept her? So for me, shadow work actually was almost meditative in a way. I closed my eyes and I imagined my 15-year-old self in an environment that she was in a lot of the time at school, especially in an environment where she felt the most uncomfortable or the most triggered. And school was that for me. I was so quiet and so timid and I couldn't speak to anybody. And so I felt a little bit invisible all the time. I wasn't comfortable with myself. I think being around peers led to a lot of comparison, just feeling less than. So shadow work for me was, okay, me right now as my 24-year-old self, I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to imagine my 15-year-old self. She's in school. She's feeling all of these emotions that I've just described. Now I'm going to imagine the current version of myself stepping into that room, into this memory with her and walking towards her. This current version of myself feels so much self-love and confidence and security, everything that she wishes she could have had. And I'm going to go up to her and I'm going to tell her everything I wish that she could have known about what's to come. And it's that meeting and that interaction that kind of brings the two versions of yourself together and kind of reinforces the idea that you are one. It's not about distancing yourself from this past version of yourself, but it's also about going back to your inner child and telling themselves it does get better and you were always worthy of these things, and that comfort and that reassurance that you wish you could have had.
Wow, you described that so powerfully.
Thank you.
Damn, like I was with you at school. I was picturing like
Love
Tam
that.
walking up to your younger self and being like, you're doing enough, you're fine as you are.
Everything you want is going to happen. I am living proof of that. Until then, I'm here for you. Like, another thing is reparenting yourself, I think is such a lovely
Tell
self-love
me about
technique.
it.
I think one of the most powerful forms of self-love is a parent and their child. That's what we often describe as unconditional love. And in the way that a parent would look after a child, since that's like the purest, biggest form of love, we should be doing that for ourselves. Self-love can sometimes be as basic as, are you eating 3 meals a day? Are you getting fresh air? Are you moving your body? These are all essential pillars to being a fully functioning, thriving human being. And it's that, it can go as basic as that, but also if you feel like you have some trauma or some pain around, my parents really never saw me for who I was, or my parents really never encouraged me or gave me validation on a hobby that brought me so much joy. Now we're going to give that to ourselves. We are not going to just accept that as a part of our story and leave it there. We are going to put in the work to fix that, because it's like you said before, we can't control how other people treat us and what happens to us. We can control how we use those experiences to shape where we're going.
Love it. The wisdom. Literally, I'm just soaking it up. I feel like so many of these things are things that like rationally I should know or like I've heard before.
They're good reminders.
But my God, you word things wonderfully, Tam. No, you do. Things hit. Wow, thank you.
Thank you.
On the topic of reparenting, you are very honest in your book about some struggles that you had growing up and almost the grief you felt about the kind of childhood that you'd experienced. If you're willing to talk about it, I would love to hear a bit more about how you grew up and how your relationship to family has impacted your sense of self.
Yeah. So growing up, I had a very normal childhood until around 7 years old. So lived in like a very quiet area, went to school, like saw my friends, and our family was like integrated. And then at 7 years old, my parents moved to London. which from my hometown is around a 3-hour drive. So pretty far. And I moved in with my grandparents, which is definitely out of the ordinary. But at that age, weirdly, I dealt with it really well because I was so close to my grandparents and I loved living with them. And I was in a house full of like my cousins and my uncles and my aunties. So it was still like a big family environment. And I was also very fortunate that because my parents lived in London, like during the Easter holidays and things, I got to visit Central London a lot. So I think that formed my identity and my ambition and where I wanted to go really, really well. So that was a great thing. A few years later, when I was 10 years old, my parents divorced, which for me was like world crashing down. It's one of those things that, especially when you're young, you just never think you're going to experience it.
I feel like especially you as a hopeless romantic child, right?
Exactly.
I can imagine you were like, wait, true love doesn't exist?
Literally. Sometimes throughout my teens, I used to find these old drawings I used to do and it was always big, happy family drawings. And I was like, I feel so sad for her.
Baby, yeah.
She was such a family girl. Yeah, you're so right. The hopeless romantic thing definitely didn't help it. That was something that I really struggled with. And it was the first big thing in my life that I was like, whoa. With my family, unfortunately, people aren't that emotional. So things aren't like, we're going to discuss this. You're just a little 10-year-old
sit down and
girl.
communicate.
Right? Like, how are you feeling? How are you coping? None of that. So things just got brushed under the rug, basically. It was like, this is how things are now, and that's that. And at that young age, like, if that's how your elders are communicating and dealing with things, I just took that on because I was like, I guess that's how I have to deal with things. Otherwise, I'm being too emotional or too sensitive, which is BS. No such thing, you know?
Thank you.
So I went a few years dealing like that. And then what does that lead to? Super suppressed emotions, this like suppressed pain and sadness that I've never grieved, I've never fully processed. In my early teens, there was a lot of that pain always in the back of my head. And then in my later teens, it started to fade away a bit. I had other things that I was kind of dealing with. But I think that really caused me to go into my shell a lot. I remember my family saying I was actually very outgoing and very outspoken and like I would be dancing like in the middle of a crowd when I was younger. But I think when you have that much going on in your head and then you don't know how to talk about it with other people, it can definitely affect your character. So all throughout my teen years at school, I was very quiet, very to myself. I think living with my grandparents as well, I can't talk to them about a lot of things. Love them to pieces and they do their absolute best. But because of that huge age gap, I can't talk to them about, you know, I'm having this problem at school. So
My boy troubles,
that's it. And being an only child as well. So then I felt like I have all of these things and then I just have myself to kind of lean on, which just made things a little bit more stressful and just, it felt safer to be here. But then that affected a lot of my experiences with making friends and getting myself out there and going to clubs and stuff. I was never going to do that.
Yeah.
So that happened. And then throughout my later teens, I felt like all of these past triggers of not only what happened with my parents and then not seeing them as often, but also then how that affected my character and how I perceived myself versus my peers. It kind of was always triggering me in the background. And that's truly what started getting me onto my self-development journey. And I think the switch for me was throughout all of those years, feeling unlucky, feeling like nothing's really working out. I'm not the person or the teenager that I want to be. I didn't know what affirmations were until a few years ago. But I used to actually affirm one thing to myself all the time when I was younger, and I didn't know it was an affirmation. And I didn't know it was changing my mindset. I just said it as a way to comfort myself through hard times. I used to tell myself, all of the hard things that are in my life right now are happening for a reason, and they are all inevitable to me leading a life that is greater and bigger than I could have ever imagined.
Oh, chills.
I was like, I have to go through a little bit of pain now and a few challenges now, and I'm going to look back at this when I'm older and think, it was all part of the plan. That was so delusional at that time. I didn't know if that was going to be true. And now, being here, like 10 years
She's
later,
living it.
She's living it.
This is just an anecdote now,
That's
you know?
And it was a delusional thing to think, but I think because I repeated it and I fully put all of my belief into it, because I think when you're struggling with things, you need something to believe in. You need to put your faith into something. That was my thing. It manifested itself to be true.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate your self-reflectiveness on this so much as well, because our caregivers, our relationship to home, our struggles in childhood, in teenagehood, all of that, it shapes who we are. And I think a lot of us don't want to admit that or don't want to go there, don't want to look at it. But the fact that you've stared it in the face visibly in your free time alone, it just shows up in the way that you're able to talk about it and then inspire others to do the same. So I really appreciate that. I'd love to move forward a little bit in your journey. So I know that you mentioned after finishing university, you came home, back to your hometown. You're struggling to find a job. You didn't have the dream girl group of friends from uni you wanted to have.
Yes.
But you started your YouTube channel.
Yes.
Tell us about that journey. Tell us how you've managed to build the incredible platforms and success that you now have.
So, despite everything I've said, I've been very introverted and I struggled in a lot of ways in my life, but I'm very blessed to say the one thing I never struggled with was my creativity. I always knew that was there. It was kind of a safe space that I could always pour into. So after school or like on my weekends when other people were at house parties at 16 years old, I was at home. I was editing. And it was the one thing where I just felt so happy and so fulfilled. So actually I started my YouTube channel mid-university, and it was literally just an outlet for me to continue to edit, continue to make videos. I never thought it was going to be serious. And then as the years went on and I started to build just a tiny but very amazing and powerful group of women online that really resonated with my content, and the few topics that I was speaking about with confidence was growing. When I was graduating, I thought, this is it. Like, this feels right to me. This is where I draw a lot of happiness and fulfillment. Why wouldn't I give this a shot? And my mindset was just graduating university and having that gap between, okay, I could take a break. Some people do like a gap year. Some people are going to travel. Some people are going to work. When am I ever going to get this gap again if I choose to go into the corporate world? I'm not. So I might as well take advantage of it. So I moved back home, safe space, live with my grandparents again. And I thought, I'm going to give myself 6 months to make the social media thing work. If it doesn't, I'll go and I'll get a job. And
we love a deadline.
That's it. You gotta love a deadline. And there was no backup plan either. Because I thought if I have a backup plan and I'm not going fully in on this,
So true.
the fear fueled me every single day. And it meant that every day I woke up, I had to give it my 100%. Because if I got to the end of those 6 months and I knew I could have done more, nothing worse. But it was a really intense journey. There was a lot of self-doubt. I didn't have a lot to go off of. I had no management. I had 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, a few thousand on TikTok and Instagram. So it wasn't stable. It wasn't like, but I knew that my passion was there. And it was just such a discipline builder every day when it's like alone in my childhood bedroom. Where I lived when I was like 6 years old. I'm like, what? To get up and be like, this is what I want to do. And I fell down so many times, and there was like, I had no other income sources, right? I was like a broke graduate. So then I remember the month of December, it'd been 3 months and I didn't make 1 penny. And I thought, and that could have so easily been the answer to, this isn't right for me. I'm failing. I shouldn't do this. And who would have thought 4 weeks after that, I had my first viral video on YouTube.
Whoa.
And that was the thing that changed everything.
What was it?
It was my lucky girl syndrome.
Lucky girl syndrome.
How
Makes
on brand
sense.
to especially what I was struggling with as well. And then the next video also did amazing. And then it was just a snowball and my following shot up, and then I could really, really go into it.
Amazing. And you talk so much about this idea of manifestation, manifesting your dreams before they've even happened. Can you tell us more about what manifestation is and how that contributed to your success?
Manifestation is all about your belief and desire to create any reality that you want. And I think it can very easily be confused because there are so many different methods, right? There's like affirmations, there's vision boarding, there's it's something called like a 3-6-9 method or something where you write things repeatedly down on a piece of paper. There's all these things. And the thing about manifesting is it's not necessarily about the method. You don't have to make time or schedule manifesting because we're always manifesting 24/7. It's a mindset, it's a way of thinking. Whatever you're thinking and wherever you're pouring your energy is then resulting in whatever you're manifesting into your life, whatever results you're getting. And manifesting to me, especially when you're picking a method, is all about what can you just fearlessly believe in. So if somebody else is telling you, you need to do affirmations, they changed my life, but that makes you feel silly, don't do it. Don't think, well, this is a proven manifestation method, so I have to do it. Maybe you're more of a visual learner, in which case vision boarding is going to be the thing for you. Like seeing these pictures where you photoshopped your face onto somebody else's body in like in New York because you want to live there. If that helps you visualize it in your brain, then that's the best foot forward, because it's all about shifting your thought patterns and your beliefs in your head to go away from these limiting beliefs of I can't do this, or that's far-fetched, or that's realistic, whatever that means. I could do a whole other podcast episode on like what is realistic? Like, there are self-driving Ubers now. And we're talking about this isn't realistic.
So true. That was just an idea in someone's head.
I hate it. Yeah, I hate
Yeah.
it. But yeah, it's all about where you pour your beliefs. To manifest.
Actually, I love that topic. Let's do that.
Let's do it.
What does it mean to make something realistic? Like what
think
does
it's
realism
BS.
mean? I completely agree.
I just said I'll do a full podcast episode, and now I want to say I'm not even going to discuss it because it's rubbish. I can't. I just think like the universe that we live in and the planet that we live on and how far we've come and all of the technology we have in our hands right now. Do you think like 500 years ago, if somebody showed you an iPhone, no, not showed you, if somebody said, I'm going to make this phone where you can video call people and people would have looked at you like you're crazy.
100%.
And then somebody comes up with an idea and then they create it and then it's that and then all of a sudden that's a realistic thing.
So true.
And it's so upsetting when something as simple as telling your peers in your hometown that one day I'm going to live in New York or I'm going to travel across the world and they're like, are you sure? Is that realistic?
Realism is fear.
Realism is whatever I feel you want it to be. If you tell yourself, of course it's realistic for me to move halfway across the world or to be a millionaire or to have a bunch of friends in a whole other country, then that's realistic. Because it's whatever you make it out to be. It's whatever you believe in. It's whatever you envision for yourself.
Wow. What role do you think imagination plays in contributing to the idea of realism?
Everything, because I'm the biggest visualizer. And one of my favorite manifestation techniques actually is visualization. I love to do it every night before I fall asleep. I'm like in my bed, I'm getting all cozy, I'm waiting to fall asleep. And then the last thoughts that are on my mind are me living out my dream reality. I'm playing it in my head like a movie. I'm watching it. I'm a very visual person, so that works for me. But it also goes back to when I was younger and I was struggling a lot with, I didn't like the way that my life was. Imagination was my escape and it was my safe space. And it's what created that affirmation that gave me comfort in such uncertain and hard times. What I was like, one day I'm going to be this big girl and she's going to be fashionable and she's going to live in London. Like, I want to live in London.
Tick,
No, I don't.
tick.
Tick, 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 tick. Yeah. And I'm going to have an amazing group of friends, even though it's something that was nowhere near my reality at that time. I couldn't even talk to people, but imagining myself having it has encouraged me to get on that path and make sure that I'm making it a reality for myself, making me believe I am worthy of that experience and I'm capable of having it.
Tick, tick again.
Tick, tick, yeah.
I love this. I am also such a dreamer. I'm such an imagination kid. Like, I also have a vision board as my lock screen.
Love it.
Yeah, like had my manifestation board all over my bedroom before the YouTube channel existed, before I traveled the world. So you are absolutely speaking my language. I would love to discuss the relationship between imagination and big dreaming and hard work and discipline. Because I think a huge piece of confidence is actually self-efficacy. Self-efficacy being this idea of, I say that I'm capable of doing something and then I actually go and do it. It's giving a presentation and that going well enough that the next time you do a presentation, you have this memory of it having gone well in the past. So you believe in your own self-efficacy. What relationship has hard work and discipline played in your journey to self-love?
Well, first, I want to touch on the example you just gave because I love it. And I have discussed something basically on the same lines in my YouTube videos, but I call it a portfolio of proof, which is when...
I love that.
I love a good phrase.
Coin a term.
That's it. I was like, if you are scared to do something and you just put the action, you just force yourself into it once, you start banking all of these memories, this portfolio of proof in your head of...
Love it.
Okay, I'm scared to do this now, but I remember last week I did it though, and I was fine, and it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. I love that. But yeah, no, I'm all about the imagination and visualizing things going my way, but that's not the whole picture. I see that as the fuel, which then makes me confident enough to go and put the work in and do the thing. Like if I'm going to an event and I'm feeling nervous, I'm showing up alone, there's loads of new people, I'm imagining it going the best way possible. And it's not something that you need to remind yourself to do because we all naturally do it. But the thing is, a lot of people do the opposite thing where they're imagining the worst case scenario. What if I'm stood in the corner? What if nobody talks to me? But you are the decider and the creator of your own thoughts. And the most self-loving thing you can do is to choose the thoughts that serve you, that empower you, that lift you up, that ensure that you are going to make the most of that situation. So even though you're not there yet, I'm seeing myself, I'm talking to everybody, people like me, I'm making people laugh, I'm having a great time, the energy is immaculate. And then already you are now in a more prepared and like better energetic space to then walk into that room and you're like, I know how this is going to go. And now I'm going to do it.
So evidently you are someone who is able to have a goal and to go for it. You're able to visualize it. You're able to action the steps needed. I would love to discuss this relationship between being a future-oriented person with goals, but also still being able to enjoy the now and to be happy now and to feel like you're enough right now. And something you talk about in your book is this idea of the arrival fallacy, this idea that, we think that upon achieving our dreams, we're going to be super happy, we're going to feel really successful, we're going to, all our problems will suddenly be resolved, and how that isn't always the case. I would love you to speak more to this idea of the arrival fallacy and maybe how you have found the ability to genuinely enjoy your day-to-day while still focusing on the future.
100%. Arrival fallacy, I didn't know what it was my entire life until I was actually experiencing it. And the first time I experienced it was when I hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Huge goal for a baby YouTuber. It's that first big milestone. I had it on my vision board for so long. I'd been at YouTube for like 3 years posting videos, no growth. And then all of a sudden I hit it. So it should have been this huge magical thing. And it was for a day. And then it's like, I just felt so weirdly sad. And I was taking myself on solo dates really regularly at the time to just sit there and think, why do I feel deflated? Why do I feel sad after something that I've dreamed of for so long? And that's when I was researching it and came across arrival fallacy, which is you place your happiness and your satisfaction at this place in the future, which is associated with an achievement or an accolade. But those aren't the things that give you happiness. Happiness isn't earned. And happiness isn't found, it's created. It's a choice that you make every single day. That was a huge turning point for me. Because yes, I was still working towards 1 million subscribers, but the experience of when I hit 1 million was so different. I felt very steady. I feel like when I hit 100,000, it was like, whoa, like incredible, like screaming from the rooftops, can't believe it. When I hit 1 million, I was like, I knew I was gonna get here. And I'm really proud of myself. But my mental health, my emotions were very, very steady because I was like, this isn't everything. This isn't happiness. In fact, every step I've taken to get here was also the happiness.
Oh, that was going to be my next question.
That's it.
So if it's not the milestone, then where do you get your happiness
It's
now?
the journey. Because if you can set so many goals in your life. I'm such a goal-oriented person. I'm very ambitious. I'm like, every time I achieve something, I always want to do the next thing because that in itself does give me happiness. Seeing how far I can go, what my potential is. But if you looked at your life as a timeline, like drawn as a line on a graph, and all the little spikes are your achievements and your milestones, they would take up this amount of space on each line. But there are these huge lines, these huge leaps in between each of those spikes, which are the journey, which is the bit that you think is so tiring and so slow. And it's like, I just want to get to that little milestone. But if you add it all up, those big lines that represent the journey make up 90% of your life. So if you're not choosing to find the happiness in the journey, you're throwing away a lot of the happiness and the satisfaction that you could be experiencing in your life. I have said to people for quite a while, I really dislike the idea of your wedding day being the best day of your life.
Amen. You are preaching to the choir.
And I'm a hopeless romantic. So
tell me more.
I'm serious.
Tell me more.
I'm serious. I think every day should be the best day of your life.
Wow.
I'm such a hopeless romantic. I love love. I personally want to get married. I don't see it as the best day of my life. I don't want to make it into this huge show or like go all out because I'm trying to go all out every day. You know, I want to pour as much as I can into every day. And that's why I love what you've created with Casual Magic because I could not agree more. And it links back into that arrival fallacy. Like, yes, we're working towards a goal. The goal is going to be great. But every step, like every time you're a little bit more disciplined or you overcome a little bit of self-doubt, that is also an amazing day of your life that deserves to be celebrated.
I love this. And I also love this because if people think that the wedding is the peak of their relationship, what about the rest of your life and your relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like, why is that the best day? Like, you have an entirety of many beautiful days that you get to experience.
So much growth.
So much growth. And it's this mindset that you're bringing into the small moments with your partner, right? Like you're walking home and you spot something that they love and being like, it literally takes me 5 minutes to just go and buy that thing and surprise them. Like, I've turned today into a day that I'm sure will be just as good as my wedding day.
That's it.
Yeah.
Love that.
Beautiful. Okay, guys, I actually want to share an anecdote of an experience I had with Tam recently that I think really illustrates the next section, the next
Okay.
thing I want to discuss. Okay, so the other day I was walking with Tam and our good friend Dom, and Dom goes, "Oh, guys, like we're all going to this party in a few days. Like after the party, do you want to grab dinner?" And my first reaction was, "Oh, I've not really spent that much time with Dom. Like, in theory, like, yeah, I'd love to hang out with him. Why not? Not sure if I'm free." So I was like, "Oh, yeah, like, would love to." But what I loved is that Tam looked at him and went, "No." Straight up the word no. And obviously then she like explained it and stuff, and it was
I was just
done.
like, oh, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I'll let you know, but it was done in such a clear way, but also really like, friendly and like, it didn't feel, like you said it in a bad way. But I found it very inspiring because I think no is a word that a lot of us are scared of.
Yeah.
And as someone who has been a people pleaser a lot of my life, I've really struggled with the word no. I think I often cared too much what other people think of me, or trying to navigate social situations in ways that maybe don't best serve me. I just found that very inspiring, and I would love you to speak more to this idea of JOMO, the joy of missing out. What is that?
The joy of missing out is all about realizing that you're exactly where you need to be. Your life, your timeline perfectly suits you, uniquely suits you where you're going to be, everything that's led you up until this point. You would never want anybody else's life because theirs is specifically tailored to who they are as a person and where they want to go. I think it's your wasting and sacrificing so much abundance you can grab in your life by trying to replicate what other people are having, but that's just not meant for you. Or maybe it is, but it's just not your time to have it yet. And that's fine. Sometimes you need to learn a few lessons before you get to that step, and that's good because it means that you are taking your life at the pace that you should in order to be fully evolved, in order to grow in the ways that you need to, in order to learn the lessons that you need to. And I experienced FOMO so badly, especially in school, especially when one of my first
What is FOMO
experiences-
for anyone who maybe isn't familiar?
FOMO is the fear of missing out. That's when you feel like everybody else is at a better thing, or people are living their life in a better way, or you're opening Instagram and you're seeing the stories of everyone traveling and you're like, well, I should be doing that. And I find it funny because I always picture FOMO to be like, you're just you're living your life, you're fine, you're just existing and you're okay. Second, you open social media, you're like, oh, and then all this stress pours in of, but I should be doing this, but what about this? And you start questioning yourself, but before you see what other people are doing, you're perfectly fine. And FOMO is basically just comparison. But I think JOMO, the joy of missing out, is where you take that comparison and you use it to instead grow even more appreciation for where you're at. Or if you are going to compare, don't compare, use other people's lifestyles or achievements as inspiration. Now it's something to work towards. I think your peers and the way that they live, if you like what they're doing, it's like, I'm going to add that to my list of goals because that's quite nice. I think that resonates with me. But it should never be at the same pace as them. It should never be in the same timeline. You are not the same. You haven't learned the same lessons. You haven't been through the same life experiences. Your timelines, your lifestyles, your experiences are so different. How could you be in the same place? It's such a disservice to yourself to think that.
I love that. And what advice would you give to someone who maybe is more of a people pleaser, who has these experiences of being asked to go to things that maybe they don't want to go to, or to take part in things that the thing they really want to say is no, but they end up saying everything but that. Oh, well, I'll check, or oh, maybe, or oh, yes, I'll go anyway, even though I don't really want to be there, or staying longer than they want to stay. What advice would you have for that person?
That used to be me. I was a people pleaser for so many years. It was that insecurity and that like, it showed up in my relationship, staying with people that I should not have been with, but also friendships, because I was like, well, I struggle making friends, so I'm just going to be really nice and really easygoing and easy to get along with. And it's important to be kind and nice, but it's also really important to make sure your cup is filled. Because I think while doing that, not only are you providing for yourself, but you're making sure you're a good friend to others, because you don't feel resentful, you're not going to project, you're not going to feel drained by them. And at the end of the day, if somebody is your friend, they want you to say no. If I knew that my friend felt compelled to come to something that they really didn't want to, and I would be like, I'm the first person to be like, if you don't want to, if that's too far, please don't put yourself up, because everybody's got so much going on all the time. And this really links into setting boundaries as well. And in the book, I actually have a full dialogue example, because I know boundaries and saying no can be so scary, which takes you through the fact that saying no doesn't have to be a scary thing. You can do it in a really, really polite way. Same with setting boundaries, and it takes you step by step of like, this is your first sentence. Your first sentence should be like disarming and showing somebody that I'm not attacking you. This isn't personal, but this is something that is going to serve me and is going to make me feel better. And then we're going to move on to how this is going to grow our relationship. And it basically just shows you that actually it benefits both parties. But when it comes to saying no, I now think of it as this isn't me offending or attacking the other person. This is me doing the self-loving thing of doing myself my best favor. If I know I'm probably not going to have the energy to do that, I am allowed to say no. I don't want to be the person that turns up because I thought I had to and then not be able to bring my full energy, when I'm sure if they ask me to go out next time, I will, because then I'll be ready to. And everybody's entitled to that. And especially if you're the type of person that wants other people in your life to have that freedom, you deserve to have that freedom too.
So true. And I think you're always saying no to something, right? Like when you're saying yes to going to an event, you're also saying no to having that time to pour into yourself or having some like needed alone time. Like even though it feels like you're not saying no in that moment, you're also saying no to something.
Yeah.
So I love that. Pouring back into yourself and understanding your own needs. One thing I really admire about you is not only that you're not a people pleaser, but that you unapologetically take up space. I feel like you are so yourself. You're wearing loud outfits at random events that don't require a loud outfit. I'm
Literally.
like, come on, Tam, give me the fashion. Oh yeah, I said this to you the other day, but I don't know if you've ever seen this TikTok, guys. And it's like, oh no, wearing like a zone 1 outfit in zone 4 on the tube. But like, that is Tam
That's me.
every day. Yeah,
Yeah.
Like, she would be in the countryside with the sheep.
I'll be in
wearing,
Tesco. In like fur coat, boots,
Yeah.
sunglasses,
Yeah,
100%.
Full gorgeous face of makeup with like what do you call these?
Cat
Wow,
wings.
that says so much about
Cat
me,
eyes, yeah.
me and my knowledge of makeup. Like the wings. And we both grew up in the UK. And this is a culture that tends to prize modesty, downplaying achievement, humbling oneself. And I feel like so much of the way that you take up space is the antithesis of what this culture kind of forces us and like makes us do. How do you have the strength to be so unapologetically you in environments that maybe don't support that?
I've learned that whilst it will turn a lot of people away and you will get a lot of judgment, it will bring the right people to you and it will be clearer than ever who is for you and who is not. The fact that you are so supportive and you're like, yes, Tam, the outfit. I'm like, we align. We get it. And we're on the same wavelength. If somebody's a bit like, why are you wearing that? Thank God I wore the outfit. Imagine I was trying to fit in. Imagine I was people pleasing. People never really know who you are. And so then you don't know if the friendship is truly there and if the connection is genuine, but also you don't really know who they are and what their values are. So that's really, really helpful. But also, it's like you said, the outfits for me was my first and still to this day is my biggest kind of way of taking up space and being like, this is my true authentic expression of who I am. Because it was the first real thing that made me feel confident, which I thought was a no-brainer, but actually is pretty unique because a lot of people like dressing in a loud or overdressed way would make them feel insecure and make them feel self-conscious.
True.
But it makes me feel empowered and I'm like, yeah, I love the way that my heels pitter-patter everywhere and I love the big coat and it makes me feel confident when people are obviously going to look in public, you're dressed differently to everybody else, but I'm like, I can deal with that now. It doesn't make me feel scared that people are looking at me. So I feel like it's this constant action of self-validation and being open and okay with being perceived by other people, no matter what the perception is.
I love that. And I bet that comes back to your inner monologue, right? Because if you're telling yourself, I love what I'm wearing. And if people are looking at me, it's because they love my outfit.
That's it,
Then you
yeah.
actually also don't fear the stares of others because
Yes.
your inner monologue is translating those stares to be something positive.
Exactly.
Love it. Your podcast is called Self-Obsessed. This is, again, antithesis of UK culture. I can imagine a lot of people will hear that name and think, this girl's so full of herself.
Yeah.
Bloody hell, self-obsessed. Oh, she's such a narcissist. And you speak to this idea of the difference between narcissism and healthy self-love.
Yes.
And I would love you to flesh that out. How can you be self-obsessed and yet not a narcissist?
So I had to include this. I have a little table in the book that says like narcissistic thoughts versus self-loving thoughts, because it shocks me to this day that there's confusion about this online, and it particularly bothers me because I was in a long-term relationship with a narcissist. And from being in that, I read books on narcissism. I didn't even know what it was before I got into the relationship.
You could write the book on
Literally,
narcissism.
I was like, how a narcissist like brain works, how they perceive things, how they think of themselves. It's a very, very dark thing. And to even compare that with somebody who just likes to take selfies or likes to is insane to me. Narcissism is literally all about manipulation and emotional abuse. And if I'm self-obsessed because I'm feeling myself today, please, not the same thing. So the difference that I like to put it into terms is a narcissist is known to have this like grand sense of self where they think they are above others. On the other hand, self-love is loving yourself, but also loving yourself enough to know that you are a work in progress and you love yourself throughout that journey. It's also walking to a room and not thinking I'm better than everyone like a narcissist would, but thinking everybody here is so great in their own right. And I love myself enough to know I don't have to compete with any of you because we're all so amazing and we can all be so confident.
We can all shine in
That's
our own
it.
ways.
And that's the thing. People think narcissists are overconfident, but they always operate from a place of insecurity. So you could never compare the two. They're so opposite. On the topic of self-obsessed, I actually titled the podcast that because, funnily enough, because of UK culture, the number one insult I got online all the time is, you're so full of yourself, you're so self-obsessed.
Oh,
I was like, I'll take that.
reclaim.
I'll take it.
You said
Yeah.
I'm self-obsessed. Well, I am.
And I was like, I love that.
Because also it's a repellent for all
That's
the
it.
people who
I'm like, you
don't-
can say what you
Yeah.
want. Self-validation. I'll put my
Yeah.
own meaning to it. But also, you can look at the podcast and be like, ugh. But actually, the reason it's called that is because we are obsessed with all things self. Not only ourselves, but self-love, self-growth, self-care, self-confidence, self-belief.
Yeah.
All of the things that go into really making us our best version of ourselves.
And what role do you think compassion and giving and helping others plays in our self-love journey?
So much. And it was really important for me to acknowledge that in my book, Buy Yourself the Damn Flowers as well. The entire third part of the book, which is called Reawakening. So this is where you've really like honed in on your inner work, healing those traumas, reframing your mindset. Once you've done the bulk of that work, although it is a lifelong journey, how are we now approaching friendships with our new self-love and mindset? How are we approaching relationships? Because they are still really, really important aspects. And to be honest, I have made so many mistakes on my self-love journey, as will everybody. It's such a normal part of it. One of the biggest mistakes I made was thinking, I've got myself, like I'm securing myself, so that's okay. And I hadn't quite built up the community-focused part of my mindset yet. And that is such an integral part of the human experience, to love others, to meet others, to get to know people on every level, to learn every insignificant detail of what makes somebody them is so amazing. And we shouldn't have to sacrifice that to like be this perfect and fully in control being just because we're always in our own space. So self-love also includes, healing and overcoming the ways in which we hold ourselves back, which then directly also impacts how you interact with others. It's like what I said, like when you are focused on your confidence, you can then walk into a room and not feel threatened by anybody. And then you're more secure to go and talk to everybody and
uplift
not
them.
uplift them, not judge their experience, be more open-minded with the people that you allow into your circle, and then have like this more fruitful experience of the people that you are communicating with.
100%. I feel like the way that we treat ourselves in our inner world is how we then operate in our external
That's
world
it.
with everyone
Yeah.
else. As a self-help guru, do you feel pressure to have it all figured out? Like, are there days where, I don't know, you're not living an aesthetic day. You're not living the routines on your vision board. You're not making progress. Maybe something's happened. You're feeling a bit behind. Like, does that ever affect you? Do you feel like you need to live up to the Tam Kaur that you've created, who's an inspiration for everyone?
I struggled with this so much at the beginning and when my views were really, really going up, because I was focused on, okay, what is my brand? I know exactly what my niche is. It's helping, uplifting other women. And my brand is aspirational. There are creators out there that are relatable, but mine is always, I want to encourage you to take the next step. And I'm going to show you how I personally do that. So I hope it inspires you to show you that this is possible and you can do this. And in doing that, naturally, I felt so much pressure in like, I'm having a really bad day today, don't really want to talk about it, or like, I need to get back on track. But eventually I thought, let me see what's going to happen, because I've made so many mistakes in my self-love journey, now in my self-growth journey. And I think a lot of other people do. But in talking to my audience or replying to their comments, I found that a really common question was, what do I do on the days that I feel down or inconsistent? And they're using it as this thing that's like holding them back. And they're like, well, I'm not quite doing it right yet. And I looked at it and I thought, but that's normal. That's part of the experience.
This is still me now.
Exactly. And I'm like, you having those down days is another opportunity to show yourself some self-love or to do some self-healing. It's the difficult days that, in fact, give you even more opportunity for growth and changing your mindset and your inner dialogue. So I decided that on my other YouTube channel, Tam Kaur Vlogs, I thought I'm going to show what my life is like on a slump day. Because I woke up, it'd been a few days, I'd been waking up really late, I was just like out of my routine, and I thought, let me document this. I don't have to post it, I'll see how I feel. And in the end, I thought, I'm going to do this and I'll see what the response is. And I fully prepared myself that people were going to be like, you're a hypocrite and you can't even stay consistent. You tell us to stay consistent.
You woke up at 11 a.m.
Yeah, that's so late,
Not
you know?
5 a.m.?
And yet all of the comments were so positive. And they were like, this makes me feel so seen.
She's human.
Yes, that's it. And that's the thing. Like, I am not perfect. Nobody could ever be perfect. And I think showing that you can still be making incredible strides on your journey, and there will be blips. There's always going to be that. I think help people feel really seen.
100%.
And if anything, encourage them more to keep going. And I didn't think that was going to be the effect. So I do try now. I think the last time I was in a slump was 2 weeks ago. It was actually what I said to you the other day because of the eclipse. And I thought, I'm just going to document this because I don't know when the next slump will come, but I think it's important to show that, yes, I am on a lot and consistent a lot, but this is also part of the journey. So I've really let go of that pressure now. And I think it's actually beneficial to show people the journey looks different on different days.
As a YouTuber, I really relate to you with the experience of sharing your experiences or hardships in retrospect. It's very easy to talk about things you've already processed, hardships you had at like 17. Like, yes, it's raw to an extent, right? Like, oh, yes, that relationship really did shape me, but I've kind of done the work, and so now I can talk about it from this place of confidence. How do you dealing with like hardships right now? Do you share them in real time, or do you think you have to kind of process it offline and then one day talk about it once it's something healed and processed? Like, how do you deal with difficult things right now and also being in the spotlight?
That's a great question. For me, it depends on like the magnitude of what I'm going through. So on a smaller scale, I'll say them in real time because I feel like the emotion's there, and if somebody else is going through a similar thing, it helps them feel seen and it helps them relate. And I think that's really nice because so many people suffer with the problem of feeling like they are going through things alone, and they no one else is suffering with that problem. And the second that you decide to be a bit vulnerable and go out and talk about it, you make somebody else feel better, or you make somebody else like feel more comfortable with that struggle or that experience. So an example of this is I have like a set day. Every Sunday I always upload on my vlog channel. And for the last few weeks, I haven't been able to stick to those Sundays because my schedule's just been so different, and I've barely been home, so I haven't been able to get these videos out. And to me, that's been this private struggle that I've been going through, and I've been getting a lot of comments saying, where's the video? When we wish, you keep uploading it a few days late. And so I decided to post a video on my Snapchat today, actually being like, my schedule's a little bit different and I'm struggling to keep on top of things, and I can't always do this in this exact way, but I am always trying my best. And that is something I could so easily keep to myself. But I found that while, yes, it's providing an answer to the people that are asking questions, it's that human element again, where if somebody else is like, I'm just starting to be a content creator, but I can't be consistent. It's like, even when you're doing this full time, there are phases where you can't 100%. Do it because you've got so many other things on your plate, and all you can ever do is try your best. But on the other hand, if I am having a falling out with somebody, or I'm struggling with my mental health, that's always going to be something I go away to process, because I think, well, yes, it could be beneficial to go out and say it online. Now you're seeing everybody else's opinions, which could then possibly affect your healing journey and how you process it. Because if you see how other people perceive it, it's going to start affecting the way you perceive it. And then you can't fully process in the way that you should have.
100%. I can't relate more. Because I think I similarly feel a sense of duty to be honest and to empower people with the knowledge that, even people they look up to struggle, and that we're all human. But at the same time, it's setting those boundaries, and true self-love is knowing what is actually going to help you and pour into you first, and knowing that once you are in a better place, then you can help others and inspire others. But especially with mental health, my God, like you should not be letting people into experiences that you are currently not okay with. You should just be with loved ones.
I love what you said about boundaries, because I saw a creator on TikTok lately talking about, yes, I'm a full-time social media creator, but I have a boundary with my audience, and you are not going to kind of pressure me into sharing things that I don't feel comfortable sharing. And I think as a creator, you constantly feel that pressure, because it's like, well, you put your life online, so you should be sharing everything. And to an extent, yes, it's important to be honest and vulnerable, but at the end of the day, you are still a person. And this is our job, and it doesn't have to be our entire life, and we don't have to throw ourselves into it if that's not serving us best. And I think that's another example of self-love as well. Like, what are your boundaries when it comes to work? Because I think with people, that's one thing, but then with work, with something that you're passionate about, something you do want to pour.
And your livelihood and your income.
Yeah, it's a hard one. And you have to be able to draw the line where it's like, I deserve the privacy.
Yeah.
And I don't have to do this if I don't want to.
I've almost learned to see my vulnerability as a gift, as a bonus.
Love.
Right? So the rest is the job. I'm going to always post. I'm going to provide value. But if there is something that is still raw for me and I decide to share that, I am never being pressured into sharing that.
Yes.
That is a gift.
Do it on your time.
I am choosing to give someone that because I believe it will help them. And I'm comfortably sharing it with, no need for it to be received in a certain manner.
That's it. Love it.
I think it's relatable as someone who has also loved self-help books, and it's been such a huge part of my journey. I feel like we've read all the same books.
Oh, yes.
like there's such, I don't know, there's a lot of overlapping knowledge in the room. People thinking that it can magnify your insecurities or exacerbate this idea of, not being enough now, that something about you is wrong right now and you need to reach this end state, that you need to glow up. What do you think about this criticism, and why would you defend self-help as a genre that is useful and needed?
I've seen a lot of those comments and opinions, and I think it's a really negative way to put something that could so easily uplift so many people and show them the solutions to things that they really struggle with. Too much of anything is bad. Too much of water is bad for you. You know what I mean? So it's all about the way you choose to utilize those tools, and you don't have to take them too seriously. And I think this has reminded me, I was at an event and I was meeting some of my audience, and a girl asked me, she said, I've read a lot of the books and I listened to a lot of the self-help podcasts out there, and I don't really know what the next step is. Like, I'm really working on myself every single day, so now I just don't really know what to do. And I was like, good. That goes to show that you don't feel like, there's this thing that's bothering me and I really want to fix it, or I want to improve in this area. Stay there, enjoy that space for a while. The fact that you don't really know what next step to take, now just live. It's really nice to reach that point, because you are not a self-improvement project. You get to work on yourself when you feel like that will best benefit you, but it's not an everyday job. I've always said, I think the purpose of life is just create as much of a happy existence as you can and to be as fulfilled as you possibly can. I heard somebody else say that the purpose of life is to enjoy the passage of time. And I love the way that that's put, because I don't think it's about you have to achieve this or you have to do this or every single day has to look productive and consistent. So I think that's what it's about. And I used to read self-help books all the time religiously at the start of my journey. And now I'm at a point where I just waddle into the bookstore and I think, what's going to pique my curiosity?
Sorry, I can't picture you waddling.
I don't know why I chose that word.
Waddling in your heels.
Stroll. Strut.
Strutting
That's
into
my
the
word.
store.
Strutting my heels into the bookstore. And I'm like, I'll go to the self-help section still because I still love it. But I'm like, what piques my curiosity and what aligns to where I'm at in my journey now? And that always looks different. Towards the beginning, I was reading a lot of books on confidence. And then in the middle, I was actually reading a lot of books on business because that's where I wanted to grow. And now, what have I been reading recently? I've been reading stuff on wellness and health. So it's always changing. And it's like, by reading this, I am improving my knowledge, which is such a great self-loving favor I'm doing for myself. But this isn't like my Bible of like, this is what I have to do now.
Is there ever an end point? Can I ever stop reading self-help books?
Yeah, if it doesn't serve you, don't do it anymore. Everybody's journey evolves all the time. Even like my the books I read, that journey has evolved. Your career's going to evolve. I don't know if I'm going to do social media forever, and I'm so okay with that. With that, you got to adapt, because that's where the growth happens. You don't have to stay on this exact journey because it's the right thing to do. The right thing to do is whatever is serving you and uplifting you and inspiring you and making you a happier self. But I do think that self-love and confidence and healing and self-growth are all never-ending journeys because of that adaptation and because of the way that you evolve. I always say I fully believe that I will be 80 years old and still finding new solo date activities to do, because I will be a different version of myself and I would have had different experiences to go off of. But it doesn't mean I still have to like listen to a podcast every morning 100%. If that doesn't make me feel like my best self.
The final kind of section before we get into the habits of the episode, I'd love to get to know you, Tam, in a new way. I have 3 questions for you. Can you describe one thing that you have learned about yourself recently that has genuinely surprised you?
Yes. So I have a really good story about this that has definitely improved my relationship with myself, like taught me kind of a new way of thinking that I've developed recently, which is I have been going to events alone a lot for like a long time. And in this job, you know, you have creator events, but then you also have networking events and things, and then just general times where you might be meeting friends of friends. And in the past, I found that there have been a few instances where I will go to an event and then come home and I'll be like, should I have gone? Or was that the best use of my time? Or I don't feel like I really got much out of that. Or I didn't really talk to anyone. Or I just spoke to the one person I knew the whole time. It was a bit of a waste of time. And there might be a little bit
Talking to me? Talking to me at the event was waste of time. No, I'm kidding.
No, never that. But just times where like I wasn't as talkative or I didn't put myself out there. And I used to do that a lot, especially at the beginning when I was turning up to things alone. And recently, I've had a lot of events to go to and I thought, I'm going to try this differently. If I come to an event and I feel like I'm standing in the corner, or the way that like the table's set up, I'm not really like in a position to be able to meet new people, I'm not just going to accept that and then go home and do what I normally do, which is maybe I shouldn't have gone. I am going to take this into my own hands. And now my mindset with every event or every new place I go to is I am going to make the most of this and kind of, it's a weird way to put it, but like prepare for regret to make sure it doesn't come. I am going to make this the most abundant situation I could possibly do. So if I turn up to an event and I am sat at the end of the table and there's not really anybody to talk to and I should be it's a networking event, I'm going to do what I got to do and then I'm going to go and walk around the table and be like, hi, let me introduce myself kind of thing. If I am alone in the corner of the room and everybody's paired off, I could easily accept that. But I am preparing for the way I want to go back home and be like, that was so good, I'm so glad I went. I'm going to go and I'm going to approach the 2 people that are talking to each other, where it looks scary and I shouldn't interrupt. But it's this new determination I've discovered in myself.
Why has this surprised you about yourself?
I think for a lot of my life, I was very passive. And like I said earlier, being very intentional and being very conscious with the decisions I make has been a gradual process over many, many years. And I think it's still evolving and still reaching new heights. And this is the newest level that it's gotten to.
I'd love to know, who are you when no one is watching?
The first thing that popped into my head was a goof. I'm such a child, and I think a lot of people think I'm like very like put together lady, like with the nice outfits. I'm so
with
weird.
Her boots and her fur coat.
I'm so weird, and that's who I've always been. And I think on this self-love journey, I really had to reconnect a lot with my inner child, but especially my teenager, and being someone who wasn't really, in a way, not going to the parties and not really having a large group of friends, I think benefited me in a way, because it meant that I really had a good core sense of who I was without being too swayed by what was cool, because it didn't matter if I was cool because no one was really watching me. So it was quite good. Like being at home with my cousins, like, I will run around and I'm very loud and I'm a goof, and I love that part of myself, and that's how I describe myself. Another funny thing, which is what I mentioned to you the other day, is people watch my videos or how I speak on social media, and then they meet me in real life and they're like, I thought that you would be like black cat energy, but you're actually a golden retriever. I'm like, honestly, I am.
Guys, Tam is so nice.
I'm like, I'm very cute.
Yeah,
I'm very cute.
So cute. Literally, I said to her the other day, I was like, Tam, you're so cute.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, wow.
And I can imagine also people being like scared, right? Self-obsessed.
Yeah.
Oh, she's so bad, and she has so many like opinions because you're passionate.
Yeah.
And then you meet
so it comes across that way.
Exactly.
But it's not me 100% of the time.
No.
Yeah.
You're so like Soft girl.
This is the thing, and this is what's helped me, especially with social media. My real name is Tamana, but I'm so glad I went by a different name online. Tam Kaur is my alter ego. Tam Kaur is who I step into when I'm at an event, or like I'm like walking a carpet, or like loads of photographers or watching me, and I need to step into like the most confident, baddest version. But when I'm at home and I'm in my PJs and no one's watching, I go back into Tamana, and I'm very like in tune with my younger self, and it's quite wholesome.
Do you know Chapel Roan? Have you heard
Yes.
of Chapel Roan? I feel like that, like that's what Chapel also had. Like Chapel is like her drag name.
Okay.
Like her real name I think is Kaylee. But yeah, so she steps out onto stage and she's like this
That's
totally
it.
different character, wears all these colours.
Yeah.
And then day to day she wears black all the time. Like she's so
Love it.
demure.
It's
compared
quite
to
nice because I think when
Yeah.
you're in the spotlight, you need that separation because you never really know when you're on and when you're off.
100%. Have you heard of this idea of hyperreality?
No.
Okay, this is
Teach
something
me.
that
Teach me, Jade.
this has influenced my journey with YouTube a lot.
Ooh.
Okay, so hyperreality is this concept within art, which is that life mirrors art and art mirrors life. And so the perfect example is when movies were first made about American high school. They went into American high schools, they saw what it was like, and then they made an artistic version of it, right? And they came up with the idea of jocks and nerds and cheerleaders and kind of, it's like a fictional world of a high school. But the thing is, because so many people watched that representation of a high school, life started to mirror the art, and cheerleaders did become the more popular people at school, and you know they were dating the jocks, and there's people who are interested in maths become nerdy, or glasses are associated with being nerdy because of the media representation. And to bring this back to YouTube, I think with us, when we are so used to watching a version of ourselves, it's very easy for that to then influence how we walk through our day to day, because it's us, but it's also a version of us.
Yeah.
And I had to learn to separate unjaded Jade and what I share from all elements of Jade,
Yes.
and not allowing what I'm watching of myself every day when I'm editing to
Yeah.
influence my day-to-day life too much.
It's what we said, people are so multifaceted, and who we are online is just one part of us. That's who we are when we are teaching, we are educating, we are inspiring others, but who are we when we're living and when we're learning through our own struggles? There's a whole other part, and there's a whole other way of dealing and expressing ourselves.
When did you last feel most alive?
It actually links back into, just because the last week of my life has been so social and been in so many new environments, it was actually in learning the lesson that I discussed previously of like, I'm going to be in this room and I'm going to be in control, and I'm going to make sure that I walk away from this feeling like I got something out of it, and I am going to do everything in my power to ensure that. That was the last time I felt alive, because it was unlocking this new version of myself. That's my favorite thing about life that lights me up personally. You know, not everybody is on the self-development journey, and that's absolutely fine. But I've always been someone who's like, but how much further can I go? What's the next level? What's my full potential? And so whenever I discover a new part of myself, I'm like, oh, this is it. Like, this is my journey. This is my personal purpose.
Oh, I love that. That's such a you answer.
Good, love that. The personal branding is like,
yeah, it all comes back around. What makes you feel authentically happy in the day-to-day? Little joys, any new hobbies? What's been some casual magic? Before we get into a casual magic of the week, what are some everyday joys?
Some everyday authentic joy. I'll start first thing in the morning. It's something that I do. I dance first thing in the morning. So I'll be in bed.
What kind of dance?
Like, I'll put on any of my favorite songs just from my Spotify playlist, and I'll just jump. I'll jump on the bed. I'll jump around. There's no technique. There's no skill.
To your boyfriend, you're like, good morning.
No, he does it with me. He does it with me. So I used to do it all the time when I lived alone, and when I was younger, because I told you this the other day, I'm not a morning person. But when you're grown, you gotta learn to be a normal, you know? And I understand the power in an early morning routine. I love going to the gym first in the morning. That's great. One thing that I found got me up is whenever I've got like a new favorite song of the week, ask my Alexa to play that, put it on full blast. That's what brings the energy to lift myself up out of bed. Then I'm gonna have a little dance, you know? I'm making my bed and I'm having a dance.
Cute.
It's like bringing in this whole new energy into the day. And I think whatever energy you start the day on can very easily stay with you throughout the day. So if you're waking up and you're thinking, oh, I don't want to go to work, or oh, I don't want to go to school, which I did for many years, that level of like misery stays with you. But if you're waking up and you're dancing for no reason, it benefits me. And it's also, dancing is a proven way to hack your happy hormones. It releases that dopamine and that serotonin. So I love to start my day on that tone.
Have you seen the thing where it's like when you find out that trauma is released through the hips, and then it's like people just People just like twerking. So like release the trauma.
Oh wow. Well, I guess I'm doing that every day, basically.
There you go. Every day,
Yeah.
leveling up. Yeah.
But that is like a really authentic way that I create joy, because I can't say I would dance in the street, you know, but first thing in the morning, that's like my little private thing that I do. And
What song is getting you up right now?
Well, it's always different. I like put my Spotify on shuffle, but I'm a big R&B girly, so it's always like a bit of old school Rihanna. Ariana Grande songs are very uplifting. One of my go-tos when I don't know what to play is Successful by Ariana Grande. That is my life
That's really
anthem.
off-brand for you.
Do you think so?
No. Really? I think that's the most you thing I've ever
Literally. I was going to say, I think that's really me. Yeah. Love a good bit of Ariana.
That's really you, actually. Yeah. Like, I actually can't imagine you saying something like, I don't know, what would be off-brand? So many things.
Like more of like a sad emotional song.
Yeah, like
I just
Taylor
think music
Swift,
can,
folklore.
Yeah. I'm not a Taylor girly, I'm so sorry.
No, I see that. Like, torture
Yeah.
poets department, it's not going to get
It's
you
not
up.
me.
No.
I love songs that are like really empowering with their lyrics and yeah.
Okay, so Tam, you've been dropping so many gems of wisdom. I really appreciate how you've just somehow managed to give us this perfect blend of sharing your vulnerability and heart and warmth
It's
and
your
personality.
questions.
Oh, stop now. You can't compliment me back. Yeah, giving us so much heart and warmth, but also so much tangible, actionable advice. I really appreciate that mix, because I think that's what will resonate most with our listeners. Do you have a final piece of advice for anyone who is maybe at the start of their self-love journey or is feeling particularly insecure today? What message would you give them?
My message would be to be as patient as you can with yourself, because you are always growing. And even if you can't see full on emotional or physical changes, you are still making a difference every single day just from picking up the book, thinking, I'm going to listen to a podcast. Like, you might not have put everything in action yet, but you are on the journey and you are doing the things, and that growth and that evolution takes time. Please remember to appreciate where you're at on the journey and the growth that you're taking every day, because it goes back to what I said, that milestone of, oh, I feel confident now, or I overcame this insecurity that has haunted me for so many years. That will come. But it's appreciating every little step you're taking, because those steps are uncomfortable and those steps are hard and they come with perfectionism and self-doubt, and it's hard to start making different decisions that get you away from your sense of familiarity and then therefore safety. Remember to celebrate those small wins every single day that you decide to take a different path of action or a different decision or a different thought.
Couldn't have put it better myself. I love it. Celebrate all the little steps, because they add up. And we have this tradition at the end of every episode where I ask my guest and I ask all of you guys to share your casual magic of the week. So this is just a small moment of everyday joy that you have trained your brain to notice. You're tagging that in your experience. Wow, this is actually casually magic right now, and kind of expressing that gratitude. And so I'll share my casual magic, then I'll ask for yours. And we also share a little voice note from you guys. And if you're interested in being featured, you can send your voice note to us on @casualmagicpodcast on Instagram. And yeah, you can send your little photos if you don't want your voice note to be featured. We have loads of community activations around encouraging accountability to find this casual magic in your daily lives. Okay, so my casual magic, I actually think you're going to find this crazy, because
What is it?
I was at the airport the other day. I was coming back from Hamburg, and I was just waiting in the queue to get on the plane. And this girl comes over to me and she's like, oh my God, Jade, like, I love your content. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And she's like, this is crazy, but I worked for Bonnier Books, the publisher, and she was Madia's assistant.
Oh.
And I didn't realize, but Madia was also your editor,
Yeah.
and Bonnier Books was also Tam's publisher, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And we had a lovely conversation about Bonnier, about Madia, and it was just a wonderful conversation. And then I had to board because I was getting on the plane and she just had something else to do. So I was like, oh, it's so lovely to meet you. And then got on the plane. Who did I end up sitting next to? This girl.
Oh, wow.
Isabella, shout out. She was sitting next to me, and the chances of that happening are so small. I was seat 20F, she was seat 20E, and we got to spend 2 hours just talking and getting to know each other. And it turns out that she's visiting Brighton in 2 weeks, so I'm going to get to meet up with her. But I love zooming out for a second and noticing these moments where it feels like the universe just The universe knows what it's
Yes.
doing. Everything is aligned, right? These fun moments of synchronicity where people come and have these overlaps from your life that you're not expecting. It's just the most beautiful thing and makes me feel so held by the universe. And you never know when you're going to meet a new friend. So that's my casual magic.
Oh, I love that. Well, am I allowed to share 2 pieces of casual magic?
You are.
The
Abundant
reason-
life.
The reason I want to share 2 is because obviously I have one for this week, but my one for last week is actually really similar to your story. So I have to say it now.
Come on.
So I went to a creator event and I turned up alone. And the thing was, it wasn't even a creator event. There were like a handful of creators, but then a lot of people that were part of this fitness club. So it was just a whole mix of people. I was there like recording my content, and obviously the people around me were creators, so they were like, what are you doing? So it was definitely harder to like talk to people than it would be at a creator event where you all kind of have something in common. So we were all doing yoga. I was just by myself, and then the yoga ended, and then we were all going to go into a room and have a dinner. And there were 100 people in this room, and there were like this big table to accommodate 100 people. I was still alone, and normally an hour into an event, I would normally talk to somebody. So I was feeling a little bit uneasy. All of a sudden, this girl behind me taps me on the shoulder, and she's like, "Oh, hi, you're Tam, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, hi." She goes, "So funny that you're here because I was listening to your podcast on the way to this event."
Wow.
And I was like, "Wow, that's crazy." I was
She's
like,
in your brain.
That's it. I was like, "Well, thanks for listening. Like, thanks for the support." And we had a little chat, no more than a few minutes, because then we all had to like go into the room and grab our belongings. So I was like, "So nice to meet you. Great." Went into the big room, and everybody had little name cards on where they were going to sit. Table of 100 people. Guess who sat opposite me? This girl.
Here we go,
And then-
universe.
Literally. And then the guy that was sat next to her, so we had like a little trio because no one was sat next to me, was so nice. Both of them were so nice, but this girl is a lot really into wellness. And the guy was also really into wellness. And they were both also really into manifestation and self-growth and mindset. Oh my goodness. So first of all, it was so weird that the one girl that spoke to me in the room ended up sitting opposite me, but also the other guy that was there. I was just sat there, and in the first 5 minutes, we were laughing and talking like we'd been friends for years. And I was like, I literally had the same thought. The universe did this. The universe knew to put us together in a room of so many people who were different, come from different places, do different things. They put the 3 all influencers together who all talk / kind of live in a very similar way. Our conversation was so aligned. It was so high vibrational. And I left feeling so inspired and just happy. Glowing.
I love that.
But my casual magic for this week is a much simpler one. Like I said before, I'm not a morning person. So the other day I was feeling particularly tired, peeled myself out of bed. My partner was still in bed. I was so jealous. I was like, oh, I just want to like stay in bed. This is so unfair. I had to like get up, and it was a bit of like a rushing morning. I was like, I've got to quickly like, do my makeup and then get out the door, and I have a full day of stuff. And I stepped into the shower. That was the first thing I was doing. And I just fully was so present in the experience of this hot water hitting my body. And I was like, and I just felt so lucky to be like, to have this little ritual that's the first thing in my day that could so easily be seen as like a chore or something you have to quickly rush through to get ready for the day. And I was just so immersed in the experience of having that warm shower that like got rid of all of the cold I experienced in like getting out of bed. And I was really, really grateful for it.
Wait, Tam, I have to share. I'm actually so jealous because yesterday the plumber came round and my boiler's broken. So I didn't have hot water this morning, and I had to brave through a freezing cold shower.
I've been there.
Yeah, and like I know that you're meant to do that to be like a 5 a.m.
Wellness
guru.
girly.
Yeah, wellness
No,
guru
never going to
and
be
whatever.
me. No, not the cold showers.
But yeah, jealous. A hot shower is
It puts so
a
much into
wonderful
perspective,
luxury.
doesn't it? And if you do it
does,
every day,
does.
you forget how amazing it is.
Here we go. Wow, thank you so much for sharing. And now we're going to listen to one of your casual magics.
Hi, my name's Eleanor and I'm from Lutruwita, Tasmania. I slept in because I felt absolutely miserable this morning and I was staying home from college and it was dark in my room and I eventually mustered up the energy to get out of bed and open the curtain, and it immediately flooded my room with light, and my little crystal in the window cast rainbows everywhere. It was a really lovely moment, very joyful and very lovely and renewing.
And at this time every week, I invite you to reflect on your past week. You guys know I'm so big on mindfulness, on introspection, and how that habit allows us to carve good intentions for how we want to live our lives and our futures. So I invite you to grab a journal, grab a notebook, grab your notes app, or if you don't have time, feel free to just pause and kind of like answer these in your head. So I'm going to ask these questions, and then I'm just going to ask you, Tam, for what your intention for the coming week is. Firstly, ask yourself, what went well this week? What are you proud of? What's a little win? And secondly, what is something that maybe challenged you this week, or something that you would change coming into next week? And then based on this, what is a one-word phrase or theme as an intention for the coming week? What do you want to bring into your new week? Tam, what is your intention for the next week?
So at the end of this week, I'm actually starting the 75 hard challenge.
Oh!
So next week is all about like starting that.
Wait,
really
what is
building my
that for
discipline.
people who don't know?
Okay, so the 75 hard challenge, I'm pretty sure it started on social media, but the rough rules of it are you need to work out twice a day, 2 45-minute workouts each. They have to be 45 minutes and one has to be outdoors. The other rule is no alcohol.
In winter? God, you're brave, aren't you?
I know. And then the other rule is no alcohol for 75 days, stick to whatever diet you choose for the 75 days, take a progress picture every single day, drink a gallon of water every single day, and then read 10 pages of a non-fiction book every single day. That's easy for me, I'm like.
Yeah. Reader
But,
girl.
Yeah, I basically calculated that 75 days before New Year's Eve this year is this Friday. So I thought I'm going to start it then. So then I'm fully finished with the challenge by New Year's Eve. I'm starting the new year with like a whole new mindset, new lessons. Who knows what new habits I'm going to pick up, what new things I'm going to learn about myself. But yeah, next week being the first week of it, the intention is just, I can't wait to see how this changes me. And I found that I love to work out because I do it for my mental health. And I like to do it as regularly as possible. But sometimes it's really hard to do every single day. When you got a busy day, it's like morning, get ready, meeting, podcast shoot, event, do this, film a video, edit. Oh, I got to go to bed. There's no time. And I think this challenge is definitely going to be difficult with days like that. But it's going to start to make me think outside of the box. And so I'm really excited to see where it takes me in the realizations. And once again, it's about like maximizing my potential, like trying something that gets me outside of my comfort zone. In my life, that has been such a pattern in, creating such large leaps of growth in my life. And I think this is the new one now to really make sure I end the year on a high.
I love this, especially because most people, as they're coming into the
Slow
end
down.
of the year, slow down, hibernate, and
Not
like,
me.
I'll leave it for January.
Yeah.
No, you said by January, I'm gonna
New me.
New me.
New me. Yeah.
New year, already new me.
Yeah. That's it. Already did the work.
Love it.
Yeah.
I think my intention is openness, because I would love some friends in my new life. No, I'm kidding. I'm very fortunate to have gorgeous community, but they're not all physically present in where I'm living right now. And so I have a lot of psychological safety in terms of friendship and call my friends a lot, but I'm trying to manifest more nourishing relationships in my life in Brighton. And yeah, I just have this mindset of openness. I have a few events that I want to go to, meet new people, and just being open to whatever those connections can become.
Wonderful. I can't wait to see where it takes you.
Thank you. Tam, thank you so much for coming on to my podcast. Genuinely, it means the world to have you as one of the first guests and sharing all your wisdom. And at the end of every episode, I kind of have this closing moment, and I think it ties really well into your vision of self-love that you brought up at the start, which is loving yourself through every experience, loving yourself even when you're low. And for everyone listening, I just want to remind you that you are enough. You are enough exactly as you are, no matter where you are on your self-love journey, no matter how far you are to accomplishing your dreams or not, you are enough exactly as you are. And we're proud of you. We're proud of you for listening to this, investing in yourself. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm so grateful you're in this corner of the internet with us. Yay. Tam, we have a final phrase, which is stay tuned and stay magical.
Ooh.
Can you do the honors?
Stay tuned and stay magical.